What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. Um, Before I get into this video, I want to remind you guys, as always, if you want to show love to this channel, if you want to donate to this channel, I have links in the description box where you can do so if you choose to. All right. In this video, I want to talk a little bit more in depth about the Kevin Durant injury. First of all, fuck any Toronto Raptors fan that knowingly cheered when Kevin Durant went down with an injury. Now, I understand that there are some fans who cheered at the apparent turnover before it became obvious that Durant was injured. I understand that. But there were sustained cheers. People, after he was hobbled and held his ankle, well, the area where his Achilles tendon is, and they were still cheering to the point where Kyle Lowry had to gesture to these fans to stop cheering for this. This isn't something that's funny, something that should be applauded. To those fans, I will say this. The next time there's a mass shooting by some crazy guy who is depressed in his life because his wife left him and he was fired from his job, and he blames the government for everything. Next time there's a mass shooting in Toronto, I will have no sympathy. An eye for an eye, suppose, I guess, right? But I lack humanity if I say something like that. But of course, when a great player of Kevin Durant's stature goes down with an injury that could forever alter his career, no one wants to call out these fans. You know what I'm saying? No one wants to call out these great Canadians. But anyway, with about 9 minutes ago in the second quarter last night, Kevin Durant suffered what appears to be an Achilles tendon injury, probably a tear. And his season obviously is over. Now, there's been a lot of speculation as to this injury and whether or not he already had suffered an Achilles tendon injury before this occurred. Now, the eye test, I remember when he first got injured in the Houston Rockets series. I remember Shaquille O'Neal and Charles Barkley saying that they didn't think that was a calf strain based upon the area of his leg that Kevin Durant was holding. Okay. Also, although generally speaking, a person that suffers an Achilles injury usually does wear a cast or boot, you know what I'm saying, and usually are in crutches. It was odd that Kevin Durant was icing an area of his leg that wasn't exactly his calf. It was closer to where his Achilles was. So, but we're not doctors, so maybe, I don't know, the ice radiates up to the calf muscle or whatever. I don't know. We're not doctors, but it did seem odd. It also seemed odd that he was, from what was apparently was described as a minor calf tear, it did seem odd that he was still limping up until just a week ago or so ago. So there were questions as to, and I started questioning whether or not it was more than a calf injury. So now, in this game, he suffers what appears to be, and the MRI will confirm this, but what is suspected to be a complete Achilles tear. So, in my mind, there are only a couple of scenarios here. The Golden State Warriors medical personnel lied, or they completely blew the diagnosis. One or the other. I mean, the odds of him having a calf injury, which was healing, and then to inexplicably suffer a complete Achilles tear are very, they're slim to none. I believe wholeheartedly that either the medical personnel knew that it was something more serious with Kevin Durant and yet cleared him to play because of the circumstances involved, being down 3-1, or or it is possible that Kevin Durant knew what was going on and he gave the go ahead to play, which is possibly what could have happened too. Excuse me. It is possible that Kevin Durant knew what the injury was, what the risks were involved, but he chose to come out and play. But the player is always going to want to come play anyway. And this is where I digress into a little bit of a diatribe, a little bit of a rant, which you guys seem to like. I have to blame a lot of people in the media for pressuring this young man to come out there, and while he did provide an emotional lift for his team to win Game 5, in the long run, in the long run, how much will this injury affect the rest of Kevin Durant's career? Now, medical treatments and advancements have gone much further than they have in decades past. An injury like this decades ago would have ended careers. If I'm not mistaken, Brian Taylor, who was the NBA's first three-point king, career was ended because of an Achilles tear, I think back in 1982, I think it was, right? It ended his career. But even with all the advancements in medicine, in modern medicine, an Achilles tear is pretty much the worst injury you can have in sports. Not only because, generally speaking, the athlete does not play at the same level that they had before the injury, but there's always the risk of a re-tear. And being the fact that even though Kevin Durant doesn't carry a lot of weight, he is a big man. He's 7 feet tall. So for him, the risk of re-injury will always be there. This could have been prevented. In my opinion, if it were not for the constant drum beating by those in the media that were questioning this man's heart, questioning this man's motivation to play basketball, questioning his desire to come out there and play, and questioning whether he was actually lying about an injury or the severity of the injury. Making asinine comments like, well, this team is better without Kevin Durant. Chris Broussard! You fake fucking preacher. Every fucking preacher I've met has been a piece of shit phony like you. You piece of shit. I'm a pastor, and my sources say, fuck you. My sources say you suck dick. But, yeah, I'm really pissed off at the media because they play a huge role in this, and they never hold themselves accountable for the shit that they do. And Charles Barkley is 100% correct. I was looking at the jump earlier. These guys are out of control now. These talking heads have interjected their personal uh, beefs and gripes so much into these segments that instead of just reporting the news and giving their opinion about sports related matter, they're starting to get personal with it now. And instead of just talking about how good a player is personally, excuse me, how good a player is professionally, they start trying to be armchair psychologists, trying to question the player's, morality, his heart, his desire. All of this shit, man, is unnecessary. And you think of all of the players who have suffered Achilles tendon injuries. Almost none of them have been the same afterward. We all saw what happened to Kobe Bryant after he tore his Achilles. Kobe Bryant was still putting up like 27 points per game. He was slowing down a little bit on the defensive end, but offensively he still was a solid player. He was, putting up 27 points per game, probably shooting like 45% from the floor, to becoming a guy who could barely put up 17 points and was shooting a percentage that resembled guys from out of the 1940s and 50s. The guy was only shooting 35%, 37% from the floor, which is atrocious. But this wasn't Kobe Bryant anymore, okay? This was a shell of the guy that he once was, and he knew it. He knew that he wasn't the same player anymore. He said, I remember he said, I'm not the guy anymore that can carry a team. I can't do it anymore. And there's been various players that have suffered Achilles tears. Elton Brand, after he tore his Achilles, had to completely alter how he played basketball, and he became more grounded. He was able to play for a couple of more years, but he wasn't the same guy that was putting up 20 and 10, 22 and 9. He wasn't that guy anymore. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Rudy Gay suffered an Achilles tear. And has anybody heard of Rudy Gay lately? But there's been multiple players over the history of the NBA that have suffered Achilles tear. The only one I can think of, the only one who was able to come back fully from an Achilles tear was Dominique Wilkins. And Dominique Wilkins had that rare mental, he talked about it in depth one time on open court. He said that he thinks one of the things that helped him was he was able to block out of his mind that he suffered that injury. I think 90% of athletes who suffer this injury, it's always still in the back of their mind that, if I make this move, is it going to hurt? Is it going to tear? Dominique just lost that fear. And it also didn't hurt that he already had this otherworldly athleticism. So maybe he lost a little bit of explosiveness, but he still was tremendously athletic. And he became a more grounded and more well-rounded basketball player. He became a better jump shooter. He started developing a three-point shot. He would still occasionally drive the basket and score. He wasn't quite as explosive, but he still was a ferocious dunker. And he was able to put up, after that season, when he tore his Achilles and some people wondered when his career was over, he was able to average 29.9 points per game during that season. I remember that season vividly. And it was second only to Michael Jordan. And I think he won comeback player of the year? I don't know if I can't remember. But he averaged 29.9 points per game, just a hair under 30 points per game, and second only to Jordan's 32.6 points per game during that season. And he had a couple of more good years. So he's the only one that I can remember that was able to come back from that at that level. Now we're talking about Kevin Durant. Obviously, he's younger than Kobe Bryant when he suffered this apparent injury. And his game isn't as predicated on athleticism as Kobe Bryant is or was. So I think the combination of his age and the way his game is, I think Kevin Durant will still be a great player. But I think he'll be different. He'll be a little bit different. You'll probably see a guy who is more. Um, you'll probably see a guy that's a little bit less explosive, and you might start even seeing a guy who is more grounded. You probably see a guy that's more grounded. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't be surprised, being that he's 7 feet tall, and by the time he comes off the injury, he'll be on the other side of 30. You might start seeing a guy who might be even starting to play in the post a little bit more. You know what I'm saying? Less movements. You know what I'm saying? Less may not have the ball in his hands as much. May learn how to play off the ball a little bit more. You know what I'm saying? But he will still be a great player. No doubt in my mind. His game just might be a little bit different. One of the guys that come to mind, even though he didn't suffer an Achilles tear, at least not with the 85 injury, it was a knee injury. One guy that comes to mind is Bernard King. You know what I'm saying? Bernard King was very explosive before the injury, and he was able to come back, but he was more grounded and he played more off the ball, but he was still able to score and be an effective scorer, and came back and became an all-star with the Washington Bullets, averaging better than 28 points per game in the 1991 season, because he had to just alter his game a little bit. But Kevin Durant will be able to come back from this. He will. He'll be able to come back from this. The question is just where will he be as a player? That's all it is. You just wonder how great he'll be. Will he still be as great as he is right now? I don't know. But he still will be a great player. I'm not going into specifics about the Warriors as far as their financial situation. I'm not even concerned about that right now. To me, it's not even something that anybody should be concerned about. One other thing I want to say too. Now we're beginning to see why Kawhi Leonard. Now we're beginning to see why Kawhi Leonard made the decisions that he made with the San Antonio Spurs organization. Because had he rushed back, had he felt pressure to come back early, this might have been Kawhi Leonard too. Now I'm not saying that Kevin Durant made the wrong decision. I'm not saying that. Because apparently Kevin Durant wanted to play, and you can make the argument that without his contributions, their season could have very well be over tonight. And the Raptors could have won a championship. But I am concerned about the influence the media played with Durant feeling perhaps pressured to come back. Could be even some of his teammates that felt like, maybe Durant could be coming back. And I think Shannon Sharp said something like this today too. You look at the guys that he's been playing with, this year. Kevon Looney, who possibly, might be lost again for the city. That's something that hasn't been talked about much. But he came back from that shoulder injury, but he re-aggravated it. He was out for the game, and he might be out, I don't know, maybe for the playoffs. DeMarcus Cousins, of course, in the second game of the playoffs, he suffered that torn quad. He came back. You know what I'm saying? Klay Thompson couldn't wait to come back from his thigh injury, I think it was, or calf. I can't remember what it was. But you got to feel like Kevin Durant did feel pressured to come back. But I just worry about the long-term effects on his career. You know what I'm saying? Like, I hate to see that type of injury happen. It's the worst injury that can happen to someone. And I would know because, you know what I'm saying, like, I haven't torn my Achilles, but both of my Achilles tendons are damaged. So I'm a little bit more sympathetic than most people are to that particular type of injury. It's a life-altering type of injury. And like I'm saying before, it's a type of injury that can recur as far as the tear. You see it happen to football players all the time. You see it happen to some tennis players a lot. It's the worst injury that you can have in sports. And I just wish Kevin Durant the best. And that's all I got to say, man. Fuck the media. Like Marcus Cousins said, fuck the media.